The universe was vast, filled with thousands of species that had learned to survive in dangerous worlds. Some planets were so harsh that even their air could kill. The beings who came from such places were called Deathworlders. They were feared across the galaxy for their strength, their endurance, and their ruthless ways of survival. For centuries, they ruled the darker corners of space. No one dared to stand against them. That was until they met the humans. When the humans first arrived on the galactic stage, they seemed weak. Their homeworld, Earth, was labeled a low-level death world at best, and most species thought they were too emotional, too reckless, and too fragile to survive in deep space. The Deathworlders watched them with amusement, calling them soft and naive. But the humans didn't care. They kept building, exploring, and expanding, one system at a time. They didn't seek war. They only wanted to learn, trade, and share. For a while, things were peaceful. Humans became friends with many alien races. They taught others how to grow food in poisoned soil, how to use medicine to heal instead of harm, and how to find beauty even in cold, empty space. Some Deathworlders laughed at them, saying kindness was weakness. Others simply ignored them. But deep in the shadows of the Orion Arm, a Deathworlder empire known as the Graltech saw humans as a threat. The Graltech were born on a world of volcanic storms and acid rain. Their skin was as hard as stone, and their claws could cut through steel. They were proud conquerors, and they didn't like seeing humans gain respect among the other species. The Graltech believed that fear was power, and the humans were spreading something more dangerous than fear: hope. So they decided to make an example of them. It started with small attacks. Human cargo ships went missing near Graltech space. A few colonies stopped sending signals. The United Human Fleet sent patrols, but they found nothing except debris floating in silence. The Galactic Council refused to interfere. They said there was no proof. The humans tried to stay calm, tried to stay diplomatic. But patience has limits. One night, aboard the human battlecruiser Resolute Dawn, Captain Mira Hale received a message that froze the bridge in silence. It was a distress signal from the colony on Vega 9, one of humanity's oldest outposts beyond Sol. The message was short, full of static, but one word was clear: attack. Then nothing. The signal cut off. Within hours, the fleet mobilized. The Resolute Dawn led 3 ships toward Vega 9. As they approached, the stars seemed to dim. What they found wasn't a battle, it was a graveyard. The colony was gone, burned to ash. Buildings were nothing but melted glass and twisted metal. There were no bodies. Not one. Commander Ruiz stood beside Captain Hale, his voice low. "Graltech?" Mira didn't answer. She looked at the scanner. There were energy readings, faint but strange, the kind that didn't belong to human tech, the kind that hummed like a warning. The crew was silent as the ship drifted closer to the planet's surface. Then the signal came again, a faint pulse from the planet's moon. It wasn't human. It wasn't Graltech. It was something else. "Sir, it's coded," said the technician. "But it's human-made." "Sort of." "Play it," said Mira. The voice that came through was calm, almost too calm. "To whoever finds this, they're not just killing us. They're taking us." Static cut in. "They're studying us, learning." Another burst of static, then a final whisper. "Don't let them win." The message ended and the bridge fell silent. The crew looked at one another. Everyone knew what this meant. The Graltech weren't just attacking, they were experimenting. Trying to understand what made humans different, what made them dangerous. Captain Hale turned toward the stars, her face cold. "Send word to command," she said. "We're not running anymore." Outside, in the endless dark, the Resolute Dawn turned its nose toward the heart of Graltech territory. Humanity had been mocked, underestimated, and pushed. But now the Deathworlders were about to learn the one truth that no one in the galaxy had understood yet. Humans don't start wars, but they always finish them. The Resolute Dawn moved through space like a silent arrow. Every light on the ship was dimmed, every signal masked. Captain Mira Hale stood at the front window, watching the endless black. Somewhere out there the Graltech waited. Somewhere out there her people were prisoners, or worse. Her crew worked quietly, focused and tense. They were not an army of killers. They were scientists, explorers, engineers, but tonight they were something else. Tonight they were hunters. "Captain," said Commander Ruiz, breaking the silence, "we have a trace signal. Graltech patrol route, 2 jumps ahead. Intercept course. Mira said without looking away from the stars. The engines hummed, and the Resolute Dawn slipped into faster-than-light travel. The stars stretched into white lines and time seemed to bend. In those few quiet seconds, every person on board thought about Vega 9. Families lost, friends gone, the message from the moon repeating in their minds, "Don't let them win." When they dropped out of FTL, the patrol ship was waiting. A Graltech vessel, smaller but armed, its design looked more like a weapon than a ship, sharp and alive. The humans didn't send a warning. They didn't speak. They attacked first. "Fire rail cannons," Mira ordered. The Resolute Dawn roared to life. 3 rounds of magnetized tungsten ripped through space. The first missed. The second hit a shield. The third tore through the Graltech hull, slicing it open like paper. A burst of fire and debris filled the void. The human crew didn't cheer. They just watched silent. Then came the surprise. "Captain, I'm detecting a signal, an escape pod," said Ruiz. "Should we destroy it?" Mira hesitated. "No, bring it in." Minutes later, a single pod floated into the docking bay. The doors sealed, and inside the pod was a Graltech warrior, alive, bleeding, and furious. His armor was cracked, his claws still wet with his own blood. 2 Marines aimed rifles at him as he struggled to stand. Mira entered the bay, her eyes fixed on the alien. The Graltech towered over her, easily twice her size. Its voice was rough and full of hate. "You shouldn't have come here, human." Mira stepped closer. "You took our people. Tell me where." The Graltech gave a low, mocking laugh. "You think you can frighten a death worlder? You are soft. You feel too much." She stared at him, calm and unshaken. "Maybe, but that's what makes us dangerous." The alien's grin faded. For a moment there was silence. Then it whispered, almost proudly, "We learn fast, human. We break what we study. And we studied you." Before Mira could answer, the alien bit down on something in its mouth. A capsule. The next second, its body went rigid, and dark smoke filled the pod. Poison. The Graltech killed himself before giving answers. The body fell still, and alarms echoed through the bay. Mira turned and walked away. "Seal it off. Find where that patrol came from." Hours later, data from the destroyed patrol ship revealed a route, a hidden base near the storm belt of Drazar 6, a death world. The surface was chaos, molten rivers, lightning storms, and gravity strong enough to crush a ship. But the signal was there. Human life signs, faint but real. Ruiz looked at Mira. "It's suicide, Captain. That planet kills anything that lands." "Then we'll land softly," she replied. The crew began preparing for descent. Shields were reinforced. Hull plating thickened. They weren't built for war, but humans had a way of turning anything into a weapon if they had to. When the Resolute Dawn entered the atmosphere of Drazar 6, the ship shook like it was inside a thunder god's fist. The heat outside turned metal orange. Storms tore at the hull. Lightning flashed across the cockpit windows. The planet didn't want them there, but they didn't care. Finally, through the chaos, the scanners caught something. A structure buried under layers of volcanic rock, artificial Graltech made. "And inside, human energy signatures. Life signs confirmed," said Ruiz. "There are survivors." Mira exhaled slowly. "Then we bring them home." The ship descended lower, disappearing into the smoke. As they approached, the scanners picked up something else. Dozens of signals, maybe hundreds. Too many to count. Ruiz's voice went cold. "Captain." They knew we were coming. Outside the window, shapes began to move. Graltech warships rising from the storms, like monsters climbing from fire. And for the first time since Vega 9, Captain Mira Hale smiled. "Good," she said quietly. "Let's show them what humans can do." Lightning flashed across the surface of Drazar 6 as the Resolute Dawn descended through burning clouds. The ship trembled, its shields glowing bright blue under the storm's fury. The crew clung to their stations, sweat dripping down their faces, the sound of metal groaning around them. "Shields at 40%, shouted Ruiz. "Hold it steady," said Captain Mira Hale. Her voice was calm, but her hands were tight on the controls. Outside, shapes moved through the smoke, massive Graltech warships circling like predators. They fired plasma rounds that cut through the storm. Bolts of red light streaked past the Resolute Dawn, close enough to shake the hull. "Return fire," Mira commanded. The human ship fired rail cannons and missiles, striking one enemy ship dead center. The explosion was so bright it turned the sky white for a second. But for every ship they hit, 3 more appeared. The humans were outnumbered, surrounded, and deep inside enemy space. "Captain, we can't hold this position," Ruiz said. "They're forcing us into the lower atmosphere." Mira looked at the storm below and nodded once. "Then we go lower." The Resolute Dawn dropped like a stone, diving straight into the black clouds. The enemy followed, but the storm was their enemy too. Winds screamed, lightning cracked, and fiery ash rained from the sky. The Graaltech ships began to scatter, losing control in the chaos. Only humans kept pushing forward, guided by radar and instinct. Minutes later, they broke through the clouds and saw it, a huge fortress built into the mountainside. It looked like a claw gripping the rock, glowing red from lava rivers below. The human life signs were coming from deep inside that fortress. Mira spoke into the comm. "Prepare for landing. Marines, arm up. We're going in." The Resolute Dawn landed hard, sending shockwaves through the ash-covered ground. The storm roared above, but inside the ship everyone was silent. Helmets clicked into place. Weapons charged. No one needed orders. They all knew what was at stake. The doors opened and the air outside was thick and hot. The Marines stepped out first, moving through smoke and ash. The fortress stood ahead, massive and silent. The only sound was the crackle of fire and the deep rumble of the planet itself. Inside the fortress, the halls were dark and wet. The walls pulsed with strange energy, almost alive. Symbols carved into metal glowed faintly green. The Graaltech had built this place not for war, but for something far worse. Then they found the first chamber. Rows of glass pods lined the walls. Inside them were humans, unmoving, connected to machines. Some still breathed. Others didn't. Tubes ran from their bodies into the floor, glowing faintly with blue light. A young Marine whispered, "Oh my God." Ruiz stepped forward, scanning the pods. "They're studying their bodies, nervous systems, muscles, brains. It's like they're trying to copy us." Captain Mira looked at one of the pods. Inside was a girl, maybe 12 years old. Her eyes were closed, but her chest still moved. A single tear rolled down Mira's cheek. She turned toward her team. "Free them. All of them." As the Marines began breaking open the pods, alarms suddenly screamed through the corridors. Red lights flashed. Heavy footsteps echoed from deeper inside the fortress. "The Graaltech were coming. Defensive positions," shouted Ruiz. The walls shook as massive doors burst open. Graaltech soldiers charged in, tall, armored, and roaring. Plasma fire filled the air. The humans returned fire, ducking behind machines and shattered pods. The battle was brutal and close. Sparks flew. Smoke filled the room. Mira grabbed a fallen Graaltech weapon, heavier than it looked, and fired it straight at the ceiling, bringing down a section of the wall. The explosion threw dust and fire across the hall, buying them a few seconds. "Fall back to the landing zone," she shouted. "Take the survivors." As the Marines carried unconscious humans toward the exit, Ruiz looked at the central console glowing at the back of the chamber. "Captain, there's something here. Data logs, experiments, all their research." Mira hesitated. "Download everything. We'll need to know what they were doing." Ruiz connected a data drive and began the transfer. The console flickered and suddenly a hologram appeared. A Graaltech commander, tall and scarred. Its voice echoed through the room. "You think saving a few bodies will change anything, human? You are the experiment now. Every move you make, every fear you feel, we record it." Mira stared at the image. "Not this time," she said and shot the console. The hologram vanished. The humans retreated through the burning corridors as explosions rocked the fortress. Outside, the storm howled even louder, as if the planet itself was warning them to run. They loaded the rescued survivors onto the ship and took off just as the fortress began to collapse into the lava below. The Resolute Dawn rose through smoke and fire, breaking through the clouds. Everyone cheered, but only for a moment. On the screen in front of Mira, the downloaded Graaltech data began to play. Symbols turned into words. Images appeared, maps, human DNA scans, and a single message in translated text. "They are adapting." Mira looked at Ruiz. "What does that mean?" Ruiz swallowed hard. "It means they're becoming more like us." Outside, the storm faded behind them, but something far darker was waiting ahead. The Resolute Dawn drifted silently through space, leaving the burning world of Drazar 6 behind. Inside, the crew was exhausted but alive. The rescued colonists were in the medbay, weak and scared, their eyes wide whenever someone mentioned the Graltech. Some whispered about experiments, others refused to speak at all. Captain Mira Hale stood alone in her quarters, staring at the holographic screen. The Graltech data they recovered was still decrypting, line by line. Strange symbols flashed before turning into human language. Every word made her heart sink a little deeper. When Ruiz entered the room, he looked tired too. "Captain, the medical team reports 37 survivors from Vega 9, but many show genetic changes. Their bodies aren't the same." Mira turned to him slowly. "Changes? What kind?" Ruiz hesitated. "Enhanced reflexes, faster healing, stronger bones. The Graltech didn't just study them, they tried to improve them." Mira looked back at the data screen. "So they're building something." "Using us," he nodded, "and it gets worse. I found a file marked Project Ascend. It looks like the Graltech wanted to merge their own DNA with ours." Mira frowned. "Why would they do that?" "They think we're weak." "That's what they thought," Ruiz said quietly, "until they learned fear." The door slid open and a medic rushed in. "Captain, you need to see this." They followed her to the medbay. Inside, one of the rescued colonists, a young man, was awake. He sat on the bed, trembling. His eyes were glowing faintly blue. "Where am I?" he whispered. "You're safe," Mira said gently. "You're on a human ship. Do you remember what happened?" He looked at her, his voice shaking. "They kept us in tanks. They injected something. Said they were making us perfect. They wanted soldiers who could survive anything." He took a deep breath, his hands shaking. "But they failed." "Failed?" Mira asked. "They said humans are unpredictable. That's why they can't control us." His eyes glowed brighter for a moment. "One of the scientists," he said, "fear makes us strong." Before anyone could ask more, alarms blared through the ship. Red lights flashed. Ruiz opened his communicator. "Bridge, report!" "Captain," the voice replied, "we have incoming. Multiple ships. Graltech signatures." Mira straightened. "How many?" "Too many." The crew raced to the bridge. Through the front window, the stars filled with movement. Dozens of Graltech warships closing in fast. The lead ship was enormous, easily 3 times the size of the Resolute Dawn. Its hull glowed with red symbols. "The mark of a warlord. They must have tracked our signal," said Ruiz. "We're trapped." "Maybe not," Mira said. "Get us moving." Full speed to the asteroid field. Engines roared as the Resolute Dawn turned hard and dove into a dense field of rocks and dust. The Graltech followed, their plasma fire lighting up the darkness. Meteors shattered around them, slamming into shields and tearing metal apart. The crew fought hard. Rail cannons fired. Missiles streaked through space. One Graltech ship exploded in a flash of blue fire, but the others pressed closer. The Resolute Dawn shook violently as an enemy round hit its side, sending sparks across the bridge. "Shields at 20%, shouted Ruiz. Mira clenched her jaw. "Reroute power from the engines. Keep the front shields up. Captain, if we do that, we won't outrun them." "We're not running," she said. A new signal appeared on the radar, small, fast, and closing in. It wasn't Graltech. Ruiz frowned. "Unknown vessel approaching." "Human signature?" A sleek black ship burst through the asteroid field, firing at the Graltech. Its weapons were powerful, precise, and unfamiliar. Within seconds, it destroyed 2 enemy ships. Mira's eyes widened. "Who the hell are they?" The comm screen flickered to life. A man appeared, older, scarred, wearing no insignia. "This is Commander Eric Vaughn, Terran Special Division. We've been tracking the Graltech for months. You've just stepped into something much bigger than a rescue mission, Captain." Mira narrowed her eyes. "What do you mean?" Vaughn leaned closer to the screen. "The Graltech aren't just experimenting. They've created hybrids, part human, part them. Stronger, faster, immune to pain. And they're testing them on captured colonies." Ruiz's voice was low. "You're saying there are more of these bases?" Vaughn nodded grimly. "Dozens. Maybe hundreds." The screen flickered again as the battle raged outside. Vaughn's ship fired another volley, blowing apart a Graltech cruiser. Then his voice came through one last time. "We can't save everyone, Hale. But if we take down their main lab, the one called the Core, we end this war before it starts." "Where is it?" Mira asked. "Deep inside Deathworld Prime, their home planet." The signal cut off. Mira stood silent for a moment, the sound of the storming battle echoing around her. Then she turned to Ruiz. Set course for Deathworld Prime. He looked at her like she was insane. That planet eats ships. No one's ever come back from there. She smiled faintly. Then we'll be the first. Outside, the human and Graaltech fleets clashed in fire and lightning. The Resolute Dawn turned sharply, engines burning bright, vanishing into the stars. The final battle was coming, and for the first time in centuries, the Deathworlders were about to learn that humans didn't fear the dark. They came from it. The Resolute Dawn moved through the dark between stars, silent and determined. Behind it, the wreckage of the Graaltech fleet drifted, glowing faintly against the void. The crew was bruised, tired but alive. Every face on the ship carried the same look, anger mixed with purpose. Their next destination, Deathworld Prime, the home of the Graaltech, the heart of the nightmare. Captain Mira Hale stood on the bridge, eyes fixed on the holographic display. The planet ahead looked like a wound in space. Red storms covered its surface, lightning flashed across black mountains, and great rivers of lava glowed like veins. Even from orbit, it radiated danger. Commander Ruiz watched the screen and shook his head. That's not a planet. That's hell. Mira didn't blink. Then let's knock on its door. The crew was silent as she gave orders. Shields charged, weapons armed. They knew what they were flying into, a one-way mission. There would be no reinforcements, no rescue. Only them. The ship entered the atmosphere, slicing through clouds of ash. Turbulence slammed them from all sides. Systems sparked, alarms screamed, but the Resolute Dawn held together. It wasn't just steel that kept it flying. It was human stubbornness. Below them, the surface was chaos. Massive black towers rose from rivers of lava, covered in glowing red patterns. At the center stood one structure larger than a city, the core, the source of the experiments. The birthplace of the hybrids. Scans show energy readings off the charts, Ruiz said. That thing's powered by something big. Maybe even alive, Mira took a breath. Then we'll kill it. The ship landed a few kilometers from the core, hidden under a ridge of volcanic rock. The air outside shimmered with heat. The sky was red. Lightning danced across the horizon like living veins. The Marines stepped out, their boots sinking into ash. Each one carried only what they needed, ammo, armor, and courage. As they moved closer, the ground began to tremble. The fortress ahead pulsed with red light as if it had a heartbeat. Strange sounds echoed through the air, metal groaning, machines whispering. It didn't feel like a place built by hands. It felt like something that had grown. Ruiz muttered, "It's like the planet itself is alive." They reached the entrance, a huge gate carved with alien symbols. Mira pressed her hand against the metal, and it opened on its own, releasing a blast of hot air and a deep, echoing hum. Inside, the walls glowed faintly, like veins carrying energy. The team entered cautiously, weapons ready. The corridors were filled with steam and red mist. They passed rooms filled with strange machines, some still running, others covered in dried blood. Then they reached the main chamber. It was vast, big enough to hold a city inside. In the center stood a giant structure made of living metal, shaped like a heart. Tubes and wires ran from it into the ground, feeding it energy from deep within the planet. Inside its core, something glowed blue. Ruiz checked his scanner. "Captain, that energy signature, it's human." Everyone froze. Mira walked closer. "Explain," he looked pale. "They're using human bioenergy to power this thing. The hybrids, they're not just soldiers. They're fuel. Every one of them connected to this machine." Mira clenched her fists. "Then we end it now." As they began planting explosives, a voice echoed through the chamber. It wasn't through speakers. It came from everywhere, vibrating in their bones. "Humans," the voice said. "You come to destroy what you helped create." The walls rippled, and out of the shadows stepped a figure. Tall, armored, and terrifying. It looked like a Graaltech, but parts of it were human. Its skin was half metal, half flesh. His eyes glowed blue and red. Ruiz whispered, "A hybrid." The creature tilted its head. Not hybrid. Evolution. It moved faster than anything they'd ever seen. In 1 second, it crossed the room, throwing a Marine across the chamber like a rag doll. Plasma fire hit its chest, but it didn't even flinch. The creature struck back, tearing through armor with bare hands. Mira fired her weapon, hitting it straight in the heart, but it healed instantly. "You cannot kill progress," it said, voice cold and calm. The Graaltech wanted strength. Humans brought chaos. Together we become perfect, Mira shouted. You're a monster. It smiled faintly. I am your future. The creature lunged at her, but Ruiz tackled it, both of them crashing into the control console. Sparks burst out as the machine screamed with power. Mira grabbed a plasma rifle and fired at the ceiling, breaking a coolant pipe. Blue energy poured down, freezing part of the creature's arm. Now, Captain, Ruiz shouted. Mira hit the detonator. Explosives across the chamber began to beep. She ran for the exit, dragging Ruiz with her. The ground shook. The walls cracked. The heart of the core began to collapse, swallowing itself in fire and light. They barely made it out. The Resolute Dawn lifted off as the ground below exploded, sending waves of molten fire into the sky. The fortress cracked apart, its red light fading into darkness. For a moment it looked like victory. Then the scanners beeped. Ruiz looked at the screen, his voice quiet. Captain, there's movement. From the explosion, it's still alive. Mira stared at the planet below, her reflection in the glass. Then this isn't over. Far below, in the burning remains of the core, something moved through the fire, slow, steady, and unbroken. Its eyes glowed bright blue, staring up at the sky, and it whispered, "You can't kill evolution." The Resolute Dawn climbed away from Death World Prime, its engines glowing bright against the black sky. Below them the surface burned. Whole mountains were collapsing, rivers of lava swallowing what was left of the Graltech fortress. The core had fallen, and for a few brief minutes the crew believed it was over. Captain Mira Hale stood at the window, her reflection shining against the flames. "Status?" she asked quietly. "Structural damage, but we're holding," Ruiz answered. "Energy readings from the planet are dropping fast." "The core is gone," Mira nodded slowly. "Then we did it." But as she turned away, the lights flickered. The hum of the engines deepened, like a pulse slowing down. Then every screen on the bridge went black. "Ruiz?" she said. He tapped his controls. "I don't know. Systems are going offline. It's like something's overriding us." Then a voice filled the bridge, calm and cold. "You destroyed my shell, but you cannot destroy what you created." The crew froze. The voice was familiar. It was the hybrid. The main screen flashed to life. The image wasn't the planet, but space itself, twisting, glowing, alive. A storm of energy forming behind them. In the center of that storm floated something huge made of both flesh and metal. It wasn't a ship. It wasn't even a creature. It was something in between. The hybrid had survived, merged with the remains of the core, and now it was growing, feeding on the planet's energy. Mira whispered, "It's becoming a living ship." The voice echoed again. "You call yourselves survivors, but all you do is fight. We are the next step. We do not fear. We do not tire. We do not die." The crew stared at the screen as the creature spread its wings of molten metal, moving toward them. "Captain," said Ruiz, "if that thing reaches orbit, it'll spread across the galaxy. It'll take everything." Mira took a deep breath. "Then we stop it here." The crew sprang into motion. Weapons powered up. Engines screamed. The Resolute Dawn turned back toward Deathworld Prime one last time. It wasn't running anymore. The hybrid ship fired first. Beams of red energy cut through the darkness, slamming into the Resolute Dawn's shields. Sparks flew across the bridge. The ship shook violently, but Mira didn't flinch. "Target the core inside its chest," she ordered. "That's where it stores the human energy. Captain, our rail cannons are nearly empty." "Then we use everything we've got," she said. "All of it." The Resolute Dawn charged straight at the creature. Missiles launched. Plasma bolts tore through the air. The hybrid roared, its voice shaking the stars. Chunks of molten metal broke off its wings as it fought back, throwing fire and lightning through space. "Shields at 10%, shouted Ruiz. "Keep firing," Mira yelled. They hit the creature again and again. The explosions tore through its armor, revealing something glowing deep inside, a blue core pulsing like a heart. The same light they had seen in the Graltech labs. "That's it," Ruiz shouted. "That's the source." Mira slammed her hand on the comm. "All power to forward cannons." "Focus fire on the core." The ship's engines screamed louder than ever before. The crew held their breath. The final shot tore through the hybrid's chest, straight into the glowing heart. For a second, everything went silent. Then the sky exploded. The blast was blinding. A wave of blue light spread across the darkness, washing over the Resolute Dawn. The shock wave tossed the ship like a toy, alarms blaring, Systems failing. Then there was nothing. No sound, no light. Just silence. When the light faded, the creature was gone. Only drifting ash and twisted metal remained, glowing faintly against the stars. The bridge was dark, smoke rising from the consoles. Ruiz coughed, his voice weak. "Is it over?" Mira looked out at the stars, her face covered in soot but her eyes alive. "It's over." The resolute dawn floated quietly for a long time. In the distance, the red glow of Deathworld Prime began to fade, turning to grey. The planet that had created monsters was finally dead, but even as the crew began repairs, a small spark flickered on one of the screens, data from the destroyed hybrid's transmission logs. Mira leaned closer. Among the static, one message repeated over and over again. "We are evolution, and evolution always adapts." She stared at the message, then turned to Ruiz. "Send word to command. Tell them we won today, but the war isn't over." Ruiz nodded. "Do you think it'll come back?" Mira looked out at the silent stars. "If it does, it won't find us afraid.